everyone, and welcome to this week's NEP podcast. Today we are joined by a student who has been through undergraduate, a year abroad and a postgraduate degree here at UEA, and I'm really excited to find out more about your experience. So if you'd like to just briefly introduce yourself.
Hello, my name's Eduardo. I'm studying an MSc in economics this year, having done my BSc also in economics here at UEA with you abroad.
Perfect. So you've just briefly covered there what you studied, but how did you pick economics in the first place?
I didn't do economics at A-level, so it wasn't a direct continuation of what I was doing at UEA. But I think it's just economics as a subject has always interested me because of the way it explains a lot of things that happen within one's personal life, but also on a wider scale in terms of politics, socioeconomics, etc. And I think it interests me in that way in terms of how it explains a lot of what happens in the world, and that's what initially drew it.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that from being an economics student as well. And you just did straight economics.
Yes.
Yeah, didn't want any kind of tightening down or anything. Yeah,
I decided to focus on economics, really sort of establish a solid understanding within that sphere. Yeah. And
then you've then continued economics straight into MSc.
Yes.
So again, didn't want to kind of go off on a different path, wanted to stick with that pure economics.
I think, and that was the intention in terms of doing pure economics at undergraduate level. I then wanted to sort of establish a strong base and then see if I wanted to go into something else, maybe postgraduate level. But when it came to deciding what to do for masters, I realised that economics was what I liked, what I wanted to get into a bit further, and so just decided to stay in economics.
Sounds good. We'll talk a bit more about your undergraduate experience later, but just you've done all your 5 years. Well, I suppose 1 year was away somewhere that we'll find out, but all your 5 years course underneath UEA. What brought you to UEA? How did you end up here?
I am from Norwich, so UEA has always been a place that I've come to for example, athletics, other sports when I was young. My parents actually came here. My dad did his degree, and my mum did her second degree at UEA, and so it was came to me highly recommended. It was a place I knew well. Also, the fact that coming out of COVID, I started when we were coming out of COVID, and it was still unclear whether university would be hybrid, which it was in the first year, or whether there'd be it would carry on in a certain way. And so I also felt that UEA was the best place for me, close to home, and it's been really good to be in my hometown with my friends around, while being able to come to a great university. Yeah,
of course. So I suppose going into that undergraduate experience, did you live on campus first year or did you stay at home?
No, I was at home, and this is something I've been talking about in recent applicant days. I've been on a panel talking to hopefully incoming students, and they've been asking me about life at UEA and accommodation, etc. And I've been telling them that I felt like first year perhaps it's worth staying in accommodation, but just to even kind of be truly kind of on campus, surrounded by everybody who's also starting out. But I don't regret staying at home. I'm very close to my family. There's so many benefits to staying at home, and it allows you to focus on your studies really well. And that's the way it suited me anyway. But
So I suppose two things from that. What did you find the benefits were from staying at home, and how did you then make friends? Obviously when you go into first year and you're chucked with maybe 11 or 12 other people, it's quite easy to go off with one and meet different groups of people. How did you find them two things?
Well, I mean, firstly, in terms of the benefits, it's kind of, I live at home, and I can't understate all the things my parents do for me and all that is done for me in the house in terms of it's my house. I don't have to worry about food, don't really have to worry about budgeting. The only concerns of mine are studying and then maybe saving a little money for the weekend every now and then. So that's been an amazing sort of privilege to have, to be able to be in that position. In terms of friends, I came to UEA with a couple of my best mates from high school, also studying economics, and so we were in the same modules together. I think every single module, first and second year.
Yeah.
And so let's say from one point of view, I sort of didn't need to make friends because I already had these guys who I was really close with. But then aside from that, I did regardless, and I made a lot of friends through sports, so like athletics, football.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously a few through economics, but yeah, it was I've had no problem. You know, the fact that UEA is a campus means that everybody's always around each other, and you really get to know people,
bump into people.
Yeah, familiar faces and so on, and you know, it's a good setting to yeah.
Definitely. No, I'm really glad that you said that actually, because when I did my last podcast with Julia, she was an Erasmus student from Italy.
Yeah.
And actually she said the biggest impact she'd had being at a UK university was all the access to the sporting clubs and societies, and that's how she'd made a lot of her friends. And that actually, like, over in Italy, they don't have sports clubs and things like that, so they don't make friends through the sports and the non-academic kind of events.
Yeah, it's that different culture. I am half Italian, so I've got to, let's say, been able to observe it in a certain respect. But like with a lot of universities are based within city centres. Yeah. But you know, for example, let's say I think my family's from Naples. The city centre is extremely dense, compact, old as well, and so there isn't space to build a big, you know, gymnasium or sports hall or whatever, and that's also a reason why campus buildings can sometimes be dispersed. And having university spread throughout a city is great, and I'm sure there's many benefits and many positives. At the same time, a campus like this is, you know, it really gives a different sort of experience.
I agree, yeah. And I suppose on that note, did you look at any other universities, or you always dead set on UEA? Did you have a kind of preference on campus or city?
UEA was my only choice. I think for various considerations, also just kind of I was happy enough to choose UEA as my sole choice.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think the campus is lovely. I mean, you mentioned lockdown and kind of COVID times. But I suppose because of the campus was there, you were still able to kind of walk around and go to the lake or them type of things, you know, because that's what I did. I wasn't a student yet, but I used to walk around the lake during COVID, and you know, I didn't realise that I'd end up here myself. Exactly. But just be able to kind of use the campus and experience it a little bit before I ended up coming here. So I think that's nice. So a bit more about your undergraduate experience then. Obviously you did do the pure economics route. When you got into second and third year, you know, what kind of modules were you looking at? Did you kind of define a bit of a pathway, or keep with kind of the, you know, core modules?
I experimented a bit with finance. One of my modules in second year was corporate finance. Yeah. And then I also took mathematical economics, which was initially quite challenging, but now sort of in my postgraduate year, I'm actually realising like how helpful it's been even a couple of years on, so I think second year was a lot about, you know, trying a couple of new things and also reinforcing some important elements like, you know, the mathematics side, and then that enabled, you know, that set me up well for third year. Yeah.
And then third year, what kind of things did you do?
So I took basically advanced everything. I took advanced micro, advanced macro, advanced econometrics, programming and data analytics, economics and environment, maybe another couple I can't remember, and I did the dissertation. Yeah.
How did you find your dis?
Good. Yeah. I believe, I hope I'm correct in saying this, I believe I got the highest mark in the cohort.
Clap for that. My goodness, yeah.
It was intense though, because it's, you know, it is true what they say in terms of everybody leaves it for, you know, for the last few weeks, and so it was an intense few weeks getting it finished.
And what did you focus on in your dis?
So my dissertation topic was basically the forward guidance, so like the communicative aspect of the Federal Reserve, the American Federal Reserve, and so how communications, FOMC statements affect sort of beliefs about the trajectory of the economy, and quantifying that effects.
I feel like we need a whole nother episode on just that alone. So out of all of those modules, I suppose one of the more niche ones was the economics of the environment. I always, you know, at open days pride UEA on having quite niche third year modules. Like I took their economics of sport, and I'm now doing behavioural economics of inequality, kind of those different modules. What type of things did you gain from economics of the environment?
I think so. With economics of the environment, I'll start by saying I chose it because of its relevance. And while other modules are more sort of theoretical, etc., this felt very very relevant and applicable to lots of things that we see in the world around us. And so, for example, I wrote a policy brief on like the US and China's competition for critical minerals, and so connected it to real world policy. And then also another project involved assessing the potential redevelopment of a nature reserve, and so it was that sort of thing of being able to take a sort of economic intuition and apply it to things in the real world which do have an effect on people and on environments, and it's also something that I can point to in, for example, a CV and say, I've done this. If I'm targeting a particular sector, I've done this, and it shows sort of hopefully the world is moving this way, and I'm keeping up with it.
I was actually going to mention that. I'm so glad that you kind of ended on that kind of little CV point, because I think now there's so many companies which are focusing on sustainability and making the world a better place, which is good. It's what's needed, but also for kind of company status or more companies looking towards going to B Corps. And I think that having that on your CV and pointing that out is, something really good to have. As you say, very relevant to the world around us and the type of goals that people want to reach within their company. All right, should we have a little bit of chat about year abroad?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so when you first came to uni, were you on the year abroad?
Yes. I joined on BSc Economics with year abroad.
Yeah, perfect. Because I know that there is an option to kind of add it on in your first year. You can, send a couple of emails and fill in a couple of forms. So you were dead set on going. You knew from the start. Where did you go?
Well, I went to New York State in the USA. I actually one of the key things actually, which I should have mentioned earlier, which drew me to UEA, was the study abroad program, because the links it has with some universities are amazing. I think it's got 200 partnerships with universities in essentially every continent in the world, and I was always sort of convinced about going to the United States. The system they have there for university was something which really interested me, and it's a lot of universities are campus based as well.
Yeah.
And for me as well, the focus on sport, but also the culture there, and just lots of things drew me there, and also the way in which, for example, I was taught. It was a liberal arts college, and so I felt like I could sort of experiment a bit more, take some sorts of classes that I wouldn't usually. So, for example, there were history classes. There were, one looking at China and the US, competition between China and the US, a class called neoliberalism. I could have taken language classes as well, and so really sort of kind of experiment and go outside the box a bit.
So that kind of makes sense, I suppose, with your dissertation topic, with like the US kind of links. Did your experience there aid you in your dissertation, or was that separate?
I think I'd say the dissertation was separate, but perhaps it's it's telling in terms that I do look at sort of the USA and what's going on in the USA as like as a point of interest for me.
Yeah, definitely.
And so perhaps it is linked to that. Yeah.
So just I suppose background to that, you wanted to go to the US. Had you been before? Had you been anywhere else in the US before? Kind of, what was that feeling like?
I'd been to the USA with my family on holiday in 2019. Did a bit of the East Coast and New England, and that definitely, obviously going as a tourist, quite different from being there for a year studying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked the feel. I liked even the small towns that we drive through, and it did really sort of, because I think that was when I was starting to think about sort of going into sixth form, starting to think about universities. And it did convince me about my desire to do a year abroad.
Definitely. So how you got there? You take your suitcase and whatever you can, I suppose, on the plane. You land in America. Did you travel by yourself? what was it like when you got there?
So the university I went to was very accommodating. The university, Hobart William Smith Colleges, they actually came and picked us up at the airport, myself and a couple of other exchange students, took us to Geneva, out in the countryside in New York State, and we got, so as exchange students we got our own individual rooms, because obviously in the US they like to do shared rooms for students, especially in their first year. But I got my own room, and I still remember that first evening walking into town to get, I think it was like a burger at a bar, so being like, okay, cool, I'm here.
And you said you travelled with a couple of other people, so did you know them, or did you had kind of communication with them before you left?
Yeah, we had a bit of, we were in group chats, etc. Before, in the months leading up to the year abroad. But yeah, then we met each other at the airport, and then over the next few days during orientation and so on, got to know the other exchange students, but also lots of American students, and that was a really good thing, the way it's set up, orientation in terms of integrating exchange students and international students with American students, and it avoids there being like a separation between the two groups. You really sort of get to become part of the community. So
even though you had a separate room, were you still in a kind of house or flat with home and international students?
So I was in a house with a couple of exchange students, but also there were like 5 or 6 guys from the lacrosse team living upstairs. There were, a couple of, I think, baseball guys downstairs. Various other American students as well. And so it was quite a mixed house. But right on campus, so it took me 2 minutes to walk to my classes.
Lovely.
And so perfectly situated.
Yeah, definitely. So just, I suppose, as a whole, because I don't want to, we've got other stuff to talk about, but as a whole, would you recommend the experience? What would your main lesson, maybe life lessons that you learned from the year abroad?
I'd absolutely recommend it, and it's something that I sort of can't stop talking about. I think it's done so many things for me, partly in terms of what I learned there from an academic point of view, but also from a personal point of view. I felt like it's being in a new environment, being in a new culture, and learning to engage with people in a different way. It really sort of kind of strengthened my communication skills, my people skills, sort of confidence as well. It sort of created fueled the flame inside of me to go out and explore the world and live somewhere new, work somewhere new, and it's so it's definitely something I'd tell every student to look at and consider doing.
Yeah, sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
So then you finish America, you come back from your year abroad, have third year. Was the transition difficult, or?
No, I'd say, and in fact, this is something that actually I gained from the year abroad, in terms that in the United States they like to set homework for every lesson. So 2-3 times a week I'll be getting homework for each module I do, and whereas for example here it's a bit more hands-off, independent study, and then when it comes to exam season, that's when you really kind of put your head down. But and so the system in America actually sort of established within me a good way of working in terms of keeping up with lessons and sort of setting myself homework here, and so it actually helped me a lot in my final year in terms of my progress with my classes.
Yeah, I really like that. I feel like that's a really nice thing to come out of a year abroad, that different kind of aspect of looking at how you self-teach yourself. And so you go through all of that. You've done 4 years under a UEA course. You then decide to add another one and go on your postgraduate journey. So kind of what went into them decisions? Was a master's always kind of on the plan, or was it something new?
Doing a master's was always part of my plans. I think by the time I got to the end of my undergraduate degree, I was still interested in economics and seeing what else I could learn from it, what sort of learning at an advanced level could give me, but also from the point of view that with the way sort of the job market is today, it's sort of more important than ever to have that, to have an extra qualification, an extra degree, And so even just from that point of view, it was something I knew I always should do.
Yeah. And did you look at other universities or?
Yeah, I did apply to a few other universities, just to cast the net a bit.
Yeah.
But then in applying for UEA, I actually received one day an email which took me by surprise to offer me a scholarship to study at UEA, and so that was something which made staying at UEA a no-brainer.
Yeah, and we'll definitely talk about that in a second. I just want to hear a little bit more about postgraduate, the type of modules that you're doing. Obviously, you had your BSc Economics and now MSc Economics, and I think a lot of people will look at the module names and they're very, very similar.
Yeah.
So just going into a bit more depth about kind of the extra things that you've learned, is it all completely new? Can you apply some of your undergrad?
It is new. For the first couple of weeks, it seems like, okay, this is familiar, I feel like I've done this in undergraduate, and then the intensity really turns up.
Yeah.
And so for example, I remember, with one module in the first semester is econometric theory, and for example, for me, I've done, first, second, third year. In my third year, I did advanced econometrics.
Yeah.
And so I'd say I'd become familiar with starter, with econometrics, etc. But then doing econometric theory was really something that was like, wow, this is totally unfamiliar to me. But it's sort of the background that I developed throughout my undergraduate degree really helped me, and it's something I'd advise to a lot of economic students if they're considering a master's, is to do those advanced micro-macro econometrics modules in their final year, because that'll really set you up well for the postgraduate modules. But it's it's going well, and certainly intense. It is a step up, but a manageable one.
Yeah, good. But overall, you're enjoying it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
definitely. And is there a lot of choice on the modules, or is it very focused on the core kind of economic concepts just at a higher level?
So you get to choose one. You've got one optional module each semester. And so, for the most part, it is, let's say, relatively narrow in terms of your ability to choose. But I think that's a good thing. But with the modules, part of the MSc Economics at UEA, I think the fact that they are, strongly within the realm of economics really gives them a weight and really gives them a value in terms of what you learn from them, rather than being a bit more wishy-washy, perhaps. And so it's it's a solid continuation of what you've learned at undergraduate level while taking it up and teaching you new things. And it's definitely, I'm definitely gaining a lot from it.
And silly question, I feel you seem very kind of quite passionate about this path, but would you recommend it, and would you recommend it at UEA doing a master's?
Yes, absolutely, I would recommend a master at UEA. It's been a great year so far for me. I feel like I'm learning a lot, being challenged as well, of course, but also equally being rewarded, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes on.
Definitely. So I just now want to touch on the scholarship that you have. Obviously, that's a master's scholarship. Just tell me all about that and the email you quite happily received one day.
So it wasn't something I applied for, which is why it came as a surprise, but I was offered the Professor Stephen Davies Scholarship. He was a leading economist in an academic in industrial economics, and it just came as a great surprise, and it's a full scholarship to do my postgraduate degree at UEA, and I was just honoured really to receive that. I believe I was nominated for it by Jibo, who taught me programming and data analytics in my final year. And it's something I don't take lightly either. I'm extremely sort of honoured to be able to come to UEA with a full scholarship, and I'm extremely grateful to the UEA and to Professor Stephen Davies' family as well for this opportunity. Yeah.
So just to confirm, so it's a scholarship which pays for your postgraduate fees for your course, and you don't have to apply. you obviously said that you got nominated. It's one postgraduate position per year, I believe.
Yeah. It's merit based, so it's depending on your performance throughout undergraduate degree, which was fortunate because in final year I knew that I wanted to do a masters, and because of that I really focused, really put in a lot of effort, and ended up with a good grade, and then it led me to that, which was rather turned out well.
Yeah, definitely. No, good for you. Okay, so I'll just ask you, like, with your scholarship, is there any commitment that you have to make back to the UEA? Do you have to go to any events or participate in anything?
Not explicitly, but because of that, having received the scholarship, I feel like the least I can do is well, firstly, do my best in terms of academics, but also, I like to go to events and to contribute, outside of class, which was something I like to do anyway during my undergraduate degree. But yeah, it's certainly something I'm carrying on this year. Obviously very grateful to the UEA, and so I'd like to pay it back in any way I can. Yeah,
definitely. Perfect. So now, just a little bit about your next steps. So obviously you've had this, long experience through university and education. What's your plans next? Obviously your masters have given you that extra degree, that extra qualification on your CV. What's the plans?
I would like to, it's obviously saying a lot about me, but I'd like to work within economics. I feel like, I've studied economics because I find it genuinely interesting, and it was something I wanted to learn about, not just because, I didn't come here just to get a degree, just to get a qualification. I came to UEA to study economics because I was interested in the subject itself. And so because of that, I'd like to stay within that realm after graduation, whether that's working for an economic consultancy like a forecasting firm or something, and use the skills, use the knowledge that I've gained over the last few years in professional experience as well.
So after your 5 years at university, obviously you've had 4 in Norwich and 1 all the way over in the US. Do you plan to work and stay in Norwich, or try different places and see somewhere new?
I'm happy to stay in Norwich for the near future, for the next year, maybe 2 years, just because it'll allow me to establish a foothold in the job market, while not having to worry too much about a lot of things that come with starting work. Also, the costs of living in a new place, etc. But then hopefully after that, I'd like to spread my wings a bit, and go somewhere new, wherever that may be, whether that's in Europe or perhaps the US. But yeah, I think it would make sense for me, at least, to get my first professional experience in Norwich.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm happy to stay.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining me today on this podcast episode. For our last little question, I'd just like to ask you, from your 5 years of experience throughout education, what is the main thing that you would take away?
So, from my experience, I would say everything you do right from the first moment will influence the outcome at the end. So, right from your first day at UEA, your first class, putting in that effort, even just that, the little bit of extra effort, it really helps in the long run, and you'll find that by the end of your final year, you'll be able to look back at, call back upon what you learned and how you applied yourself in first year, and it'll all have a residual effect on how you do in the end. So it's really something. It's in the moment you might not realise it so much, but it's something where if you apply yourself right from the very start, then it'll really have an effect on how you continue throughout university.
Definitely. Brilliant piece of advice. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this week's NEP podcast. This semester we have more podcasts around inclusive eco, some chats with lecturers, and exciting events such as the NEP volume being released, as well as the essay competition.